Chris Vasica, I'm with Irrigation Management. We provide installation service and winterization here in the Greater West Metro. Today I want to talk about some technology that's out there, some things we're thinking about doing, looking for your ideas and what you're thinking about doing. I want to talk about this technology that Andy Humphrey shared with me, the company he has, Harmony Analytica. They've got sensors that you can connect via the internet. He sent me a soil moisture device, and he was cool enough to actually fly into Minneapolis, have lunch, and gave me a device. It was in play all summer long, and I've been able to sit down and understand some of the things that it does. The device measures moisture at 3 inches and at 6 inches. It will average it out. It'll give you both readings, and then also it gives you the soil temperature. I know the fertilizer guys are always watching the soil temp, and they want to see what it is. Come spring, they want to know when they got to get their crabgrass preventative down, when to get some certain chemicals down, and so they're constantly watching that. They want to see when germination is going to happen. So it's good information. I think for that crowd, they go nuts over this thing because, having that temperature right at their pocket, and they can watch that temperature go up and down depending on what the day is doing. But moisture is a big thing for us, and what's in the soil is what matters to the turf. What kind of turf you have. We're up here in Minneapolis, and we primarily are growing bluegrass and ryegrass. So, soil temperature above 50 degrees and below 65, 70 is kind of a sweet spot. Starts to get really hot, and we do start to see some issues with different turf. Moisture in the soil is going to tell us one or two things. One, either we're putting enough water down, keeping the moisture levels at the right level. Are we putting too much water down? How is that system operating? I tested this system on my own sprinkler system. I operate with a Weathermatic. I use evapotranspiration rate. As the weather station draws down, the system decides how much water it's going to add back in. I try to run it at a 50% deficit. I know I could run more, but I feel comfortable with that. I have installed some new turf about 6 years ago, and it came from the U of M, and it was supposed to be really drought tolerant. It is drought tolerant, but it is super thatchy. It almost reminds me of Bermuda grass down south. The color is beautiful. Right now it is a dark green, and I don't really fertilize much. I don't do much with the weeds. I'm a sprinkler guy, so sprinklers are fixed. They work. I need to do some better work on the crabgrass and some of the dandelions, and just got to hire the service and get it done. But we're going to talk about Harmony Analytica. And what's cool is I've had it for a year, so I've had a chance to see what it does and make some comparisons. And what it showed this year, if you were in Minnesota, number one thing we had, rain. We're still getting rain all the time. It's September right now, and it's raining out. I could probably call half my customers, and they probably agree that we could go ahead and start winterizing their system. But because of that consistent rain, there's only been maybe a handful of opportunities where it stopped raining long enough for the turf to finally dry out. Now, there were some pockets in the cities, West Metro, North Plymouth, and some of you guys might have seen some other areas, but we did see where we had rain that was coming through, but it was only getting just maybe an eighth of an inch or a quarter inch. Wasn't even enough to, set off a rain sensor. So we did have some pockets that stayed dry, but they were in heavier soils, so it really didn't really do much for phone call volume. So all the work that we sold this year, we had to sell it. So upgrades and things that we thought the customer would think were smart solutions. We integrated ServiceTitan as a CRM, so it really puts the power of doing estimates right at the technician's hands. We pre-build a lot of estimates, estimates for smart controllers, estimates for rain sensors, estimates to add a zone, walkthrough estimates, so you can just mark how many heads, how many sprays, and if there's any valve work. Because we flat rate price for residential, it makes it quick, it's easy, and now all of our technicians have successfully sold things this year. Pretty exciting because we sold $260,000 worth of upsells. Now, I still do sales as my primary thing, and I probably did 90% of the sales up until this year. This year, the technicians beat me out. They did almost $140,000 in sales out in the field. Instead of me being right there doing the sale call, I was assisting them over the phone. They were right there. They were able to fill out the estimate, present it to the customer, and get a yes or no question. We did not do a lot of installs this year. Of that 240,000, about 140,000 was just in upgrades to existing systems. We did just south of 100,000 in installs this year. If we tick over 20, it's getting pretty busy. So it's not a big part of our business. It still makes up about 10% of our business. The bread and butter of our business is service and throughs and repairs and stuff. That is 90% of our business. Let's come back to the Harmony Analytica. Harmony Wi-Fi hub connects the Wi-Fi to the device. So they also have a wireless pressure sensor with transducer, so you can watch the pressure of the system. That's amazing. And the wireless weather station, which is currently sold out. Here we go. The Hexi sensor Wi-Fi kit. One side is the sensor that goes in the ground, and on the other side, I installed mine with the top of it right at the top edge of the soil. Then we've got the Wi-Fi hub. So I've got that plugged inside my house. I've got this out in the yard. That kit looks to be $400. As long as you got Wi-Fi, hook it up, whatever. Franklin T10 is an item that we use for hooking up to our hydro ice systems. I'm sure it would work just fine, so consider that in all of your costs. Interestingly enough, we always talk about lease agreements. I think this could be on a lease agreement. As long as we're taking care of the site, we're going to put this in. It's going to cost you $200 a year to have this in, and we're going to monitor the moisture levels on the property. And if you stop paying for the service or the contract runs out, I can just run over there, pull it out of the ground, and put it in the next site. Something to consider. I know a lot of you guys are looking for some different revenue streams, and you'd have to put a lot of these in, but if you did have 100 of them in, $200 a year, multiply that by 2 years, $200 at 100 of them, then you'd be at $20,000. I'll take $20,000. Now, it's going to cost you $40,000, so it would take you 2 years to recoup your money. Maybe that doesn't work. Maybe you just charge for the unit, and then you just charge for the monitoring of the unit. So do a lot of things. But for a lot of you guys who are putting in hydro ice systems, and if you're having to add a mobile hub, you've already sold the hydro ice system. Just tack this in as an additional upgrade. It can connect to that. If this is $400 and you double it plus install, and let's say you charge $1,200 with this thing installed, and then you give away the first year monitoring for free, the hydro ice system might be $5,000, $6,000, whatever that might be. If they're in the mode of spending money, adding sensors would be smart to elevate your estimates. The hydro ice monitoring is a revenue stream. Everybody's talked about that. We haven't capitalized on the way we should be, but we are charging every year for the services to be connected to the mobile Wi-Fi. I've been taking advantage of it because it sends us notifications. We are able to create either a site visit or an off-site visit, which would be, turning times up and down, and you're able to charge, for each of those visits. This could create another revenue stream. That pressure sensor that you just saw could create another revenue stream. I think mapping included with this is going to be key. We map everything new that we install. We use ArcGIS. You can see this big blob on here, which is Twin Cities Metro. That's all of our mapping points. And as you zoom in on them, you start to see where the controllers are and, and different things. Here's a site that we didn't install, but we gathered all of the valve locations and the controller location, so the next time somebody goes on that site, they can easily walk to the valve. That one right there, right underneath the tree. I'm sure that's covered in leaves all the time, so it's wonderful that the technician can walk to that site and know where it is. We just took on a new site this year. That's 90 some zones. From a distance, it's clutter, but as you zoom in, you start to see the zones, whether it's a rotor or spray, in the areas they cover. It's good information. We've also got the blowout ports. We found those out in the field, so when we blow it out this fall, we can open up the ends of the main lines and make it a whole lot easier for us to do our jobs and get things done. Back to Harmony Analytica. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to log into it. And I'm going to the soil monitor. Click on my device. Right now it's showing 32% average moisture. It's also showing 60 degrees soil temp. We just had some rain, and so the upper part of the soil, and it's pretty sandy here, upper part of the soil has, and probably within the thatch layer and stuff, is holding quite a bit more moisture, and there's less moisture down below. But the average 32%. What does 32% mean? I really don't know yet, but I can tell you from experience when it's too low. I'm going to show you that. It's got this thing called charts, and it syncs data every 30 minutes. It creates a data point. We have this chart here. This is 1 day's worth of data. And you can see where it was, where it spiked up to, and where it is now. At 3 inches depth, it was at 37%. And then right at 11:50 last night, it spiked up to 39%. Now what happened? The sprinklers went off. And so it spiked up to that point. And since then it's dropped down. Some of that water has evaporated or been taken up by the plant material. And now it's averaging out at 38%. Same thing for the 6-inch depth. It started out at 24, popped up to 26, and now it's leveled out at 25. So our average moisture started out at 31, spiked up to 33, and now it's at 32. Now, this next chart. Here's the temperature. So the temperature at 3:41 yesterday is at 60 degrees. And then it dropped down to 52 degrees, and that was at 6:41 this morning. And you can see how it's been slowly climbing, and right now it's back up to 59.9. Okay, so you can see how the soil surface has been fluctuating up and down throughout the day. This is just 1 day worth of monitoring. Now we're going to look at it in a week, okay? And you could see like these heartbeats, okay? Now, this general heartbeat right here, this has been this last few days, okay? And so we had a little spike here. We still have heartbeats up and down, but we were losing soil moisture throughout the week because we didn't have any rain here for the first, let's see here. We received rain on September 2nd, but it stopped raining on August 30th. So we've really been without rain in this section. And then we got a nice big shot of rain right there, and then it's slowly falling down. But all these heartbeats are the sprinkler system or small shots of rain in between. Basically, the average through the week is in the mid 30s. The lowest point was at 34% just before it rained that night. And that was at 1:12 on September 2nd. Now, I'm going to go to temperature. It's up and down in basically night and day. You can see where it starts and where it goes, but in general, you can see a flow graph of how it's been cooling all week. Starting at the beginning of the week, it was hot last week, 76.1 degrees. And you saw that last chart, it was at 60 degrees. The soil temperature has changed a ton. I thought soil temps would follow with the rain. Not really. You can look at both, and there's not this spike happening at the same time. Temperatures cooling down, but the temperatures were cooling down, period. So it doesn't seem to be much there. But that's for a week. What I'm excited about is I'm going to jump. There's 1 month, 3 months, and then a year. I think the year is going to really spell out what this thing can do. I'm not sure exactly how the percentages work, but I do know the percentage on my property of when things are getting deficit. As we look at the year, in this line right here, for average moisture, it says 20, okay? Now you've seen I've shown you like 30, 34, 35%. The soil's at capacity right now. It's got plenty of water. Its sprinklers are keeping up with it, doing fine. But at the beginning of the year, I was just getting everything placed. But this is the real starting point right here. But you could see this drastic drop. And any of you guys that are in Minnesota and you can remember about May 5th through May 15th, we went into a drought. And it was right in the middle of startups. Sucks, because we're just trying to get startups done. And of course, people were being annoying and, you know, why haven't you started my system yet? It's dry out. Why is it not running? And it's like, excuse me, we've got a lot of systems to get going. It takes some time. But what happened though was our phone call volume, when this was dipping, and when it got right about 20%, the phone calls is by right about May 8th through May 15th, our phone call volume was through the roof. We had a lot of phone calls coming in. So now I'm looking at this tool and going, how can we set it up so our office can see it? We could set up a trigger that notifies the office when this thing is getting at 23, 22 and it's dropping, to know, one, is the week booked? Is there anything we can throw out to the next week? Because we are going to get service calls coming in. And worst thing to do is to have somebody call in for a service call in the spring and we can't get out to them for 7 days. You know, I mean, you could just tell them to go pound sand, but hey, these are customers willing to pay. They're willing to pay for a priority call. If you knew this information and you knew that it was happening in a certain town, if you had these things placed in different towns, for us, if the city of Plymouth all of a sudden was getting dried out, then we would know to open up some space. That little dry out deal generated over $125,000. Could have that been higher if I was paying a little closer attention to the information as we're going into it, knowing, hey, office staff, get ready. We're going to get a lot of phone calls from this area. It would help the office staff to blow open some holes and get some room for some technician visits. And we could call them early season priority visits. We could either see you in 7 days when we're in your area, or if you want an early priority visit within the next 48 hours, charge whatever you want. You know, add another $50 to the hourly rate, or $100, whatever you want to do. You know, I wouldn't call it emergency rates, but you could have a priority rate that's like, hey, I need you now. That's something to think about in the way we use it. Some other things here, some other ways I think it could be used. Andy gave me a great suggestion. Sorry, Andy, I never employed it, so I can't talk to it. But taking the device with you to a sales call. Maybe you're bidding a maintenance contract for an HOA. Maybe you're bidding for a house install. And take it with you, have a Franklin T10, plug it on the outside of the house, put the monitor device in the ground, map it, know where it is, make sure it looks good. It just takes a shovel, a couple minutes. As long as you have those two devices hooked up, it doesn't matter. It's going to send a signal and you're going to be able to watch it. If you have any questions in between, just let me know. Then what it's going to tell us is what kind of sprinklers we should be using, what your soil infiltration rate is, if it's high, if it's low, how your soil is reacting to rain, where's that rainwater going, is it staying in the top surface, the bottom surface. So it's going to help us to program the controller, make it more efficient in the products that we use and the programs we use. So as a sales tool, it is going to raise the value. We're not going to the bottom dollar. And so now it separates you from the rest of the crowd and you're competing on value versus price. If price goes to the bottom, the contractor with the lowest price still has to make money, so they are going to strip out things. They're still going to install a good system, but maybe they're not going to put fabric at the bottom of their valve boxes. Maybe they're going to use a little more of an inferior wire. They're not going to hook it up to Wi-Fi. There's a lot of things that they could do or not do, but at the end of the day, we all got to make money, and so you get what you purchase. I believe selling on value is a much better proposition than selling on price. Even if they're looking for a better price, you can still keep the value of the system up. There just might be some things that you're not going to put in. This was the first year that I employed a couple things. We always have a shoulder season. September is our shoulder season, late August. It's just the way it is because we're primarily a service business. Most of our work is starting to run out. We had some price challenges this spring and a couple of things that I offered just to give the customer choices. Got to stop doing that. We switched to either 2 or 3 levels of pricing. The customer no longer needs to go to other contractors to get other prices. We just provide them other solutions for different prices. Then they can decide what level they want to do the system at. Gave a couple some choices. They wanted to put in a full system, and they were like, well, it's a little more money than we thought. I'm like, well, no, that's fine. We can work with your budget. We don't have to put the whole system in. What's the most important to you? And they're like, backyard and the side yards. That's our most important. So just redid the quote, had it just for the backyard and the side yard. And then I also added in a third quote, and that was to put the whole thing in, because they were leaning that way. They would rather just put the whole system in, and that's fine. And I'm like, okay, we'll put the whole thing in, but we get to decide when it goes in. And so we're going to put this off into our shoulder season. That's what we did. We put it out to the end of August and gave them a discount on the price. It was a time of the year where we just don't have a lot going on. We still want to put the value into it, but because we're short on work, we were able to get a happy customer who was willing to wait and put in the shoulder season. So next year, we're going to push on that. In fact, I want to go out with the first, hey, we're looking for a good deal on a sprinkler system or some upgrades. We've got some great late August, September specials, and lock them in early in the season. None of us have time to do anything. So we're able to push that work out and start to have some more items waiting for us come end of August, early September. Yes, we're going to take a little bit of a hit selling that in late August, early September, but we're going to open up some slots earlier in the season that for high demanding customers, they're willing to pay the premium dollar. They're not going to argue. They're not going to nickel and dime. They're just going to take the premium systems and keep us busy. Just some thought process there. But using these devices to help upsell for $400. I mean, that's pretty reasonable, I think. You could just throw it in your truck, and when you go out to a site, put it in. The other thing worth upselling is with a high dollar commercial properties. They might have a front entrance. We don't care if anything else dies, but if that dies, you're going to be looking for a new job. And so we could take one of these moisture meters, charge it to the customer, and then charge them to watch it. If they're that concerned about it, they're willing to pay the extra money to keep those areas in tip-top shape. If we see it drop below a certain threshold, that will initiate a phone call and a site visit, either to, if they're on HydroWise, we can turn up the times, maybe that we don't have it quite in the right deal, or we have a site visit, which if it's priced properly, I mean, you should be able to walk in and walk out in half hour or so and should have a $250 to $300 site visit. So just some things to think about as you're investing into marketing. This creates a good marketing apparatus that we can do. So would really like to know what things you guys are using out there, and if you've got some ideas, I'd love to hear some new ideas. I like trying new things. So if you got something new, I don't care if it's a gizmo, gadget, whatever it is, maybe comment at the bottom here and let me know. But anyways, Chris with Irrigation Management.